Hey everybody, this is Don again, and it's time for episode 56 of Practical Reality. It's a Friday afternoon, about 1:30 or so. It's a cold, sort of raw day out there. I wanted to sit outside and do the video, but the breeze just keeps blowing my script around, so I can't get it to sit still. So I'm back in the car. I'm going to make this video for you. It's been a couple of weeks since I made a video, which I don't really like that, but I'm going to explain why. And today's topic is going to be about self-discipline and why it sometimes fails. And I've been watching videos from a woman who calls herself Celestrina on YouTube, and she has a great viewpoint on this, something I had never considered before. So I'm going to offer sort of my own view on what she says. Now, a lot of people out there take self-discipline very seriously, and some people can maintain it and some people can't. And for those of you who have ever wondered why you can't maintain self-discipline, this woman I've been watching gave a great explanation, and I'm going to put a link to that video that she has in the description of my video, and I would invite you to check it out. Now, I have never addressed the subject of self-discipline directly, but I have addressed it indirectly by talking a lot about the need for internal control and how the need to regulate your internal environment and remain in a state of gratitude is necessary if you're going to evolve as a person and a spiritual being. I'm going to talk about my own personal experience, and I'm hoping that some of you can relate to that. Now, as a man on a conscious spiritual journey, the regulation of my internal environment is my number one goal. And this could be called my form of self-discipline, of course. And as anyone who has ever viewed any of my videos knows, this is my daily goal, but it's also something I've not been able to maintain on a 24/7 basis. Which means that you could say that my own self-discipline has failed to some degree. So the question is why? And the answer turns out to be not exactly what you think. I was blaming myself and thinking of myself as weak and uncommitted. That wasn't until I watched this woman's video. She talks about how the failure of your self-discipline is not caused by your laziness or your weakness, but by what she calls your lack of capacity. And it took me a moment or two to understand exactly what she was talking about. But when I did, I realized she was right. Your capacity is how much you can take. In other words, the world is throwing crap at you all day long, and you are constantly filtering and absorbing the stimulation from the environment. How much you let that affect you is your choice. How much you let that affect you is your choice. But how much control you can maintain over the choice you make is another story. And that's often where the failure comes in. If you allow the input from the environment to control your internal state, then you are failing at your discipline, but it's not necessarily your fault. It turns out that you have only so much capacity. So the question becomes, how are you going to manage your capacity? Is it possible to expand your capacity? I would say yes, it is, but the method is not as obvious as it seems. And I realize that something I said in a previous video, namely, filtering your influences becomes an incredibly important tool in managing your capacity. Now, you may not have realized it, but it's easy to tell when you have reached full capacity and the environment is still throwing stimulation at you. But you may not realize it, that the capacity is the problem. You're stressed. You feel overwhelmed. You feel like you're in a state where you can't handle it anymore, and you break down. You might cry. You might go into a state of depression. You might get angry. You might turn to drugs or alcohol. But in some way, you're trying to escape from that situation, from feeling overwhelmed and stressed. And that is the path of least resistance because you can't stand up and take it anymore. But it's also a very natural human reaction. And it happens to all of us. But the recognition of this condition as a strain on your capacity might provide you an avenue for dealing with it. Because another part of the normal human reaction is to feel like a failure when you get into that state of mind, and you are not a failure. You're simply reaching your capacity. So it is possible you may be able to take a step back and create space and realize that you are in that state of mind and that you will not be there forever. And the creation of the space may allow you to take that step back and see the problem for what it is. And if it is a problem of capacity, then you can realize that you are not a failure and that you don't have to put yourself in the space where your vibration becomes extremely low and you sink into a state of shame or despair. And being able to create that space may allow you, as I said, to see the problem for what it is and tackle it by putting yourself into a higher vibrational state, which will allow you to raise yourself out of that state of despair or shame and realize that you are not a failure. And taking each small baby step like this can eventually build your resilience so that your capacity naturally expands. And when you get triggered into a state of shame or despair as a result of the stress, you may not stay there for as long as you normally did. Each little small step in that process is a victory that will help you build resilience and help you combat the state of despair and shame by bringing yourself into a state of acceptance and eventually joy. Even though the expansion of your capacity may seem like an impossible goal when you're mired in that state of shame or despair and feeling like a failure, the recognition of that state for what it is may give you the opportunity to expand your capacity and take an important step in your personal evolution. Another thing that's important to realize in this battle against capacity, you might call it, is that we are naturally wired for so much negativity, and it has been ingrained in us for years and years by dealing with people who are not conscious and the reinforcement of negative ideas from the external environment. So you are not failing if you fall into a state of shame or despair as a result of overcapacity. You are simply living the pattern that has been reinforced in your mind over years and years of programming. So it is not going to reverse itself in a short period of time. The discipline you need to develop then is to recognize each small step as that victory and reinforce that idea in your mind until that becomes the standard mode of thinking. And the events that normally triggered the state of overcapacity no longer seem as significant. And the small step that you're taking means that when you reach that state of overcapacity and find yourself falling into that state of shame or despair and feeling like a failure, that you stop it in its tracks, take a few deep breaths, and reverse yourself into a state of gratitude and joy by recognizing that you are grateful for everything that you have and that the feeling that you have now is transient and is not your natural state. And if you are truly on the path to personal evolution, then your natural state should become one of gratitude and joy and peace. And once you can rewire your brain to feel that on a regular basis as the standard state, then the negativity that has been programmed into your mind for years and you have made significant progress on that negativity that's been wired into your brain for years and years and years. And you'll be evolving into a person who is conscious and aware, peaceful and grateful. Then you can see the lack of consciousness in others and the negativity in the external environment as stimuli that you can deal with effectively, because you have learned that that is not who you are. That you are a person of peace and gratitude and happiness. And that will be the day that you can cultivate that feeling and let it live inside of you and declare that you are the master of your internal environment, and you will have reached a new state of self-discipline. And overcapacity will not be as big a problem for you as it was. Now, as always, I did some research for this video before I actually started, writing the script for it. And my research revealed that there is an actual biological reason for why your self-discipline slips when you've reached your capacity, when you feel overwhelmed. The amygdala is one of the oldest parts of your brain. Before we evolved into a being with a higher ability for reasoning, the amygdala was the most primitive part of the brain, and it sent us signals that helped us survive. So when you reach your capacity and you're feeling stressed and your self-discipline starts to slip, it's the amygdala's fault. Because when you are stressed and your capacity is waning, you slip into survival mode, and the amygdala becomes the dominant part of your brain. It sends the signals that keep you stuck in survival mode, that make you fearful, and prevents you from seeing your way out. So this is another reason why you should not beat yourself up when you feel your self-discipline is slipping. The amygdala, or that primitive part of your brain, is simply acting in the way that has helped you survive, which it's been doing for thousands of years. And making yourself aware that this is what is happening can help you step back from the thoughts in your head and create the space that will allow you to realize that you are not those thoughts. And it will give you the opportunity to start exercising the internal control and reclaim your peace of mind. So as I said in the beginning of this video, it's been a couple of weeks since I made a video, and I really felt bad about that. And I was starting to feel stressed and like a failure for not maintaining my discipline. And I have been very, very busy over the past couple of weeks doing different things, adding things to my life. And that level of activity means that I was sort of operating at capacity, and the discipline to make these videos sort of slipped away. So I thought about denigrating myself for doing that. And then I did this research and listened to this woman's video, and I realized I'm okay. I was dealing with overcapacity, but I still have to find the discipline within myself to bring myself to a state of gratitude so I can continue making content for my channel, which is something that I love to do. And I hope to be able to enforce that discipline in a state of gratitude and be more consistent in my content. Now, a couple of major points I want to make before this video is over. First of all, one way that I've been practicing lately to bring myself into a state of gratitude is with a mantra, okay? And having been doing this now for a few weeks, I realize that even the way that you say the mantra reflects sort of a sense of discipline. Because the easiest way, if you feel hurry or you're feeling stressed or in a state of overcapacity, the easiest way to say your mantra is just to repeat it to yourself quickly. Like, I am in perfect health. 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 But then I realized that it's far more effective if you say it slowly. Take a deep breath and say it slowly. I am in perfect health. I am in perfect health. I am in perfect health. And you're supposed to say it 7 times. And if you say it slowly like that, it's much easier for you to make yourself believe it. And it's much more effective in penetrating your subconscious. So that becomes your default mode of thinking. That's just one example of how a slight change in the way you do things can make a major difference in your capacity. By raising your vibration, by repeating this mantra, you can realize that you are not your thoughts and bring yourself out of the state of overcapacity to a more peaceful and joyful and state of internal control. Now, of course, if you're watching this video, you're going to say to yourself, oh my God, I have so many examples of how my discipline slips. Or you might say, oh, I don't need this video at all. I maintain my discipline all the time. If that's true for you, then great. But if you are one of these people who sometimes wants to denigrate yourself, beat yourself up for not being able to maintain a state of self-discipline, then realize that your own body is fighting you in this process. So when you let your discipline slip and you do things like skip the gym or, hit the snooze button 5 times, this kind of thing, instead of getting up in the morning, don't beat yourself up for that. Okay, that's the wrong thing to do. Okay, you are not a failure. You can bring yourself into a peaceful state simply by adopting a mantra to repeat to yourself that tells you you are not these thoughts, that you can handle what's happening to you, that you are in good health. There are literally thousands of different thoughts that you have every day that you can turn from negative into positive if you make a mantra out of it and repeat it to yourself and let that penetrate into your subconscious until that becomes the standard mode of thinking. And that's a way, in my opinion, to expand your capacity naturally and in a healthy manner. Now, one final point on this subject is that when I started to write the script for this video, I really had no idea exactly what I was going to say. The simple act of beginning to dictate the video, I use the voice recognition thing on my computer to write the videos. It's much faster than typing. The simple act of just dictating this, my initial thoughts onto the document, sort of allowed a free flow of thoughts to come from me that allowed me to finish this script in less than an hour's time. And doing that, for me, I sort of came to my own conclusion about how to expand my capacity. So it was almost like a therapy session. I actually conducted my own self-therapy session where just by talking about the problem and talking about the subject I wanted to speak about, it helped me to reach my own conclusion and come up with my own solution for dealing with that feeling of overcapacity. So maybe that's helpful for you as well. Maybe that's something you guys out there can sort of talk yourself into as well. And I hope that this is helpful for you. And I, of course, thank you all for watching. And I wish you all peace, joy, and prosperity. And I hope that this video, you can take something positive away from this video and feel a greater state of internal control and less stress as a result of dealing with the external stimuli that the world throws at you every single day. This is Don, and this is the end of episode 56. Have a great day.